Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Service Operations ServiceNow Bright Talk featuring RapDev. I'd like to welcome everybody today. We've got a good short while planned for everyone. A little bit of a Q&A and a fireside chat here with Kyle. So we'll introduce ourselves. We've got a live chat here. So please put your questions, comments, thoughts in here. We'll do our best to respond to everyone. If we can't get around to everybody, we'll make sure to follow up and get everybody the answers they want for a lot of this great content today. And most of all, everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting this and supporting us. We do appreciate it. My name is Eric Schnorr. I run global service operations for ServiceNow. We'll get into Kyle. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. Kyle Bruckner, work at RapDev. I'm on the delivery side of the company and been working with ServiceNow for quite a while now, over 10 years.
Awesome. So I'd like to start this with sort of level set around what is service operations, and just talk to everybody about Gartner and IDC define service ops as the process of creating value for customers through service delivery. And that could be activities like plan, design, deliver, service improvement, customer service, feedback collection, automation, things of that nature. ServiceNow, we look at it as automating and optimizing technology by bringing together ITSM and ITOM on a single unified platform. And that expands resilient, creates cost-effective services while delivering great employee experiences and productivity. And this includes things for us like major incident management, request management, problem resolution. RapDev, being a great ServiceNow partner, has a perspective of modern service operations, which includes cloud and artificial intelligence. And I'd like to, ask Kyle, how does RapDev sort of view service operations? And, can you unpack sort of how you approach things a little bit differently?
Sure, Eric. So first, RapDev is a engineering first company. So if you strip out the process, the protocol, the governance that Gartner implies, you strip out the product suite oriented nomenclature and verbiage that is defined by ServiceNow. If you strip out all the fancy words that exist to justify spending $50K on a 128 slide deck and some marketing data sheets, what are you left with? You have to understand what's there, and then you have to understand when things degrade. So you're left with visibility and health. So the core spirit of service operations, or modern service operations at RapDev, is defined the same way as those two, but we look into it from a different lens. Right? We operate within that light by being ahead of the curve to make sense of the available information, just utilizing the latest tech, which includes cloud native and GenAI.
Yeah, no, thank you for that articulation. Appreciate it. So RapDev's modern service ops story, really resonates. I've seen it with customers, users groups, and workshops. Can you share how your approach helps customers and maybe share some of their success stories?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So at a large streaming company, we help them to get the best ServiceNow experience. And for some teams, like dev teams or app teams, that means not having to go into ServiceNow. So some of the best ServiceNow experiences are enabled just by the API. So we hooked their app team repos into ServiceNow DevOps change velocity, and that enabled some automated change approvals for them. So devs no longer had to go to CAB or even get into ServiceNow. But beyond that, right, that's just frosting on the cake. But we also enabled generative AI to provide recommendations when things go wrong, right? So let's say an observability tool picks up that a service is no longer healthy. The system can then sift through the observability data, auto detect the latest merge diff, and then utilize that context to provide recommendations to the app team. Most times they have a fix right before they even know what the problem is. And at that point, it's a quick review, approval, and a merge request to fix the issue. And then another one at a large North American bank. Our approach to gaining visibility of what exists is more engineering friendly than you'd find elsewhere. So at this large bank, we enable teams to define their CSDM as code directly within their repos. So no more handling of Excel sheets and uploads and imports, right? That's the traditional flow to get the CSDM populated, right? But now we give the power directly to those app teams to define how their app services are related to their upstream biz apps, or how they're related to relevant microservices or other technical services, and how that whole topology fits together, all within their existing code base, just by adding a single config file, right, a YAML file. So that's our CSDM as code. Not only does that speed up the time to visibility, but we help this bank get to a point where it's much easier to maintain that CSDM over time from an engineering perspective, right? We live in a time now where documentation for tooling is managed as code. We think the CSDM should be managed the same way. So engineering first.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. So as an elite service operations partner and great ServiceNow partner, RapDev has built tools and offerings to help our customers. And you've got the modern service operations offering on the ServiceNow store, which incorporates GenAI into the technology stack. And of course, here we've incorporated Now Assist across our entire platform to boost productivity and efficiency for employees, customers, agents, developers, etc. We've actually got a question kind of along this thread that came up in the chat. How does RapDev view generative AI, and how are you guys incorporating it to help your customers?
Yeah, I've just got to say, Now Assist is on the right track, and it's a killer product. But first and foremost, RapDev views GenAI as being much more than just being able to summarize tickets. So as many know, GenAI is capable of providing code, structured data. It can even invoke functions as instructed. So with that understanding, we try to position GenAI capabilities as a junior employee at the company, right? As the models improve, its capabilities are expected to become comparable to that of a senior employee, right? And then who knows after that. But for now, we're passionate at RapDev about sharing how GenAI on the ServiceNow platform can utilize the content and data that's already there to provide recommendations, and those recommendations could be code, or any modification to a real world implemented technology, whether that's structural or content based. But okay, great. But then above and beyond recommendations, we are helping customers get GenAI to actually implement with human provided supervision and oversight. So the idea is, if ServiceNow is a collection of structured data to maintain state and scripts to maintain business logic, and the GenAI can interpret both of those things and provide both of those things, it should already be staring you in the face that the cost of your ServiceNow platform team and the cost of managing IT in general at your org should already be reducing over time already. And if it's not, you're kind of behind the curve. I mean, we're living in a time now where people are catching their own rockets out of midair, and others are having trouble adopting a little bit of GenAI and integrating it with their existing workflows. So it's a big imbalance, and we're just trying to get ahead of that and bring customers up to speed with what's already there. But to get there, right, as a ServiceNow customer, you have to be open to adopting the GenAI capabilities that ServiceNow provides. So that's what we're trying to do: share the use cases with customers to show them the power of what's possible today, so they're not left behind tomorrow. It's all about the convincing use cases. So yeah, that's our focus.
Yeah, no, and I think sometimes for customers it feels like you're you're building the plane as you fly it as
Yeah.
well, you know. So we got looks like a savvy ITOM question here popped up in chat. Customers want to take advantage of technology, not just to fix faster or move quicker, but to automate and self-heal uh, proactively, predictively as much as possible. Um, the question that popped up was around ITOM and AIOps. So, how does RapDev walk with customers through their AI operations journey?
Yeah. One step at a time is the key. But I think the big one is what I mentioned before about app teams getting recommendations as services break. All right. So imagine for a moment 10 years ago, you get a phone call 2 a.m. Your Java-based currency exchange service is down, millions in revenue per minute at risk. You have to figure out what the issue is. You've got to check the network, you check the database, you check the app, the web services, maybe it's TCP based comms, you check the logs, which logs, right? Maybe you joined the team 6 months ago. So you really don't even know what you're looking into yet. Not to mention the person in that situation probably isn't even in the right mindset. They just got woken up. They've got to now do this discovery exercise. I'm gambling that anxiety and fear is a little elevated. So nowadays, with observability tooling, boom, you've at least got systematic access to the relevant data. Well, that's good. And if you're decent at zipping around observability tools, you can cut the analysis phase down pretty good in terms of time. But then, you fast forward to today. Instead, let's say you get that initial call, and you aren't told about the issue, but instead you're provided with a proposed solution because GenAI has already been fed. It's already been fed the observability data. It's already been fed the recent change data, the relevant Git history, the current IAC config. If everything relevant has already been considered and interpreted by the AI, well, then you hook that Gen AI output, recommended code change, whatever it is, you hook that Gen AI output into the automated flow or a automated flow, and that just requires a merge request and senior dev approval. So at that point, you've just changed the game, right? It's automated remediation, but it's dynamic and flexible, almost as if humans are behind it, but you've got the Gen AI operating behind the scenes. So you've just at that point, you've turned Gen AI into your L3 support team, right? So we walk with customers to get them there one step at a time, one flow at a time, one data source at a time, one punch at a time, one round at a time. So never give up an opportunity to work in a little rocky inspiration. But yeah, that's our style.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and that's great. And I guess on a more personal note from you, and maybe germane to Gen AI or ServiceNow for that matter. But even beyond that, what technology, what excites you about the potential for technology in the future?
Oh boy. All right. So I'm ready for tools like Devin from Cognition AI to take over. Have you heard of that one?
No.
So Scott Wu over there is doing amazing things. It's like you can give the machine a request for a service and the machine builds it. Could be an app, could be this or that. It codes itself, it checks itself, validates itself, gets information itself. But it shows the power of what's possible. Jensen over at NVIDIA, not too long ago, he suggested it's no longer important to learn how to code. And at first glance, you're like, okay, buddy, yeah, right. But when you think about it and you really become intimate with the tech, some people start to realize, and I'm one of them. I think he's right. There's always going to be two types of people. I think the person who drives the nail with the hammer really well, and the person who accidentally drives their thumb instead. So even the simplest tools, I think, require skill, and Gen AI requires skill to make the most of it. And that's what they're doing over at Cognition AI, just a lot of skill. So what that means is, to me, Gen AI, it'll always have its doubters, but those who become skilled with it, they'll leave the others in the dust. what's most important now, I think, is getting people to see the potential use cases related to automation and GenAI working together, so they can see the skill in action to inspire some more adoption of their tooling. That's what RapDev is trying to promote. So in essence, we're just trying to lead the way, be the light for someone who's just walking along the dark, complicated path that is AI. Um, and and what excites me about the potential for tech in the future, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I see a world where structured data has found its place in the history books right next to the punch card. Once we solve for the current AI power limitations and then solve for the current AI software limitations, I don't think it'll be too long before we find ourselves solving for what Michio Kaku wrote about in his book Hyperspace, one of my favorite thought experiment books. How do we place an infinitely large computer within the 10th dimension? But that's crazy. Then at that point, maybe our biggest problem will be, okay, how do we just implement Trekonomics and just worry about exploring the galaxy? So in my eyes, it's all positive. I'm looking forward to it all.
Awesome. And anything else you'd like to share with the group here?
Sure. I guess overall, I get it. It's really hard to make sense of these things. We're dealing with new complexities, and most people already have a business to run and existing responsibilities. So how do they even have time to become experts on the art of the possible, right? How do they buy into it? It's really tough. So the blessing for the ServiceNow customer is ServiceNow has already done the hard part, right? They've provided the tech, partnered with NVIDIA, right? Brought the art of the possible into the platform. So the GenAI service operations, it's there. Customers just need to have that courage, I think, to adopt it. First, admit that they are living in the past, and then do something about evolving into what's currently available to reduce their current spend. It reminds me of, I'm a sports guy, so it reminds me of Bill Walsh, right? Joined the 49ers in 1978, took a terrible team. They were 2-14. But in just 2 years, he won a Super Bowl, right? And over the next decade, he won a total of 4 Super Bowls. He was the outside talent that knew the way. He changed the game, implemented a new technical system, the West Coast offense, and a unique leadership approach. Totally changed the game. So sometimes it just takes that courage to bring in that one outsider who's done it before and bring the West Coast offense to your team. Or in this case, takes the courage to allow ServiceNow and RapDev to bring service operations powered by GenAI to your team.
Awesome. Kyle, thank you for sharing all of this today. Thank you for your time, your support. Thank you for the partnership. And I'd like to thank, everybody in the audience, for dialing in and their time and all the great questions here. We will follow up on any unanswered questions, anything in the chat. We'll make sure we get back to everybody and get their answers. But again, big thanks. Appreciate it from everyone.
Thank you. Had a lot of fun.